Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Going Rogue Podcast. Before we get into it, we're going to take a second and thank some of the companies and the people that make this whole thing possible. The Battlefield Highland Games is being hosted by yours truly, October 19th this year in Fredericksburg, Virginia. Registration is live on heavyathlete.com. Lunches are provided, t-shirts are provided, awards will be provided. We're going to have all classes and hopefully all 9 events, and we hope to see you there. HeavyAthlete.com is a cross-compatible database, meaning you can link all of your historical scores from NASGA to your Heavy Athlete profile, regardless of how your name was ever entered. All of your new scores will automatically update into NASGA going forward as well. We've created a pro women and a lightweight women's class, meaning you can finally see where you rank in your actual class. It's receiving updates all the time and is free to use for athletes and ADs. For more information, go listen to the One Turn NASGA No More, or go to heavyathlete.com.
Hey guys, just a quick intro to this episode. I was able to sit down with Danny Webster again. We had a fantastic time. This was recorded immediately following the Greenville Highland Games down here in South Carolina. Matt was out throwing on the West Coast, so time zone differences and all that, he was not able to join us. We wanted to kind of get into a lot of different things, so this episode's going to jump around a bunch, and it's really just us offloading a bunch of things and opinions and trying to have a discussion. And I quote a few people in here, and I hope I don't misquote them. I hope they know that if I do, it's no misintent. But what I really enjoyed was a conversation I had with Tom Soroka and Aaron George before I went and chatted with Danny, and that is going to tie into some things that Danny says. So I will touch on that again at the end of the episode once you listen to it all for context. But thank you guys for tuning in, and I hope you like it.
Yeah, I have to tone it down sometimes. Booming.
Yeah, same problem.
It's going to be me grunting like every 5 seconds if I move to the left or right.
I don't know if you're as tired as I am after today,
Dude,
but
I'm beat.
Those 2 breaks were...
That was brutal.
That second one was every bit of an hour.
Oh my gosh, yes. Being 46 years old and we started with Hammer. And then we came back and did a break.
Yeah.
And then we did caber, which was a large caber.
Yeah, they made a point to make sure that ours was bigger than yours and we only had 1 turn. Which is part of what we're going to talk about today. Oh, it was the same one?
It was the same caber.
How many of y'all turned it?
None. The ground was so wet, and when you got grass, but you got sand underneath the grass, when that gets wet, it forms a concrete.
Yeah.
So when we was throwing, the caber would hit and skip.
Oh, see, we didn't have anybody skip. It dug in really good. It had so little taper from the bottom to the top.
And that's another thing. Is that no taper.
All right, so then we'll jump into one of the Facebook posts. That is the whole reason we're doing this.
And then I didn't turn the fucking caber.
Yeah. Is, hey, not everyone should turn the caber. So then we had a caber that almost no one turned.
Me, Paul, and Jason all had good pulls on that caber. It was just skipping like a stone on that ground.
Yeah, so Ross, for us, was the only person to turn one. Because he's just... we had a lot of strong guys.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
great
Ross, Cody, Chance... I don't want to throw myself out of it, but I'm not as strong as they are, like just statically. And, I mean, Ross got 1 turn, and it was a 930, which was kind.
I saw it, yeah.
It was fucking painful. That thing was so evenly weighted top to bottom.
Yeah.
So I took my first run with it, and I tried to walk, jog, run, like I do with any decent sized caber, and I swear the first one it was just pushing into my shoulder the whole time. Yes. I couldn't get the front ahead of me to save my life. So then on the second one I said, all right, I'm gonna push into it before I start to run. And so I had it kind of perfectly in my hand, like just straight up and down, and I walk, jog, run, and I stopped, and I swear to God the top of it didn't move. It just sat level in my hands,
sat on you like an elephant.
Yeah. And I'm staring up at it just waiting for it to start to move, and it just didn't. And I had a decent amount of speed. My third one I overpicked and I had to drop it, and shit happens.
Yeah, my first one I picked it. It was a really good pick, and I started moving with it.
It wasn't crooked at all. It was perfectly straight, so you could pick it.
When we got it, it was wet.
Yeah,
it was completely wet. Like you had to. There was one side that was dry, and the other side was completely wet. So you'd have to turn the caber where the wet side was against your shoulder.
Yeah.
So the dry side was on the bottom.
So you could actually grab it.
So you could actually grab it because there is no taper in this thing.
No, not
So
a bit. I mean, it was maybe an inch and a half different top to bottom.
Maybe.
Tops.
Maybe.
And that's being kind.
Yeah, and the dry side that we had to pick had a little curve in it. So it was rough. When you picked it up, it tried to twist on you.
Yeah.
And my first pick, it was a good pick, and I took off, and it got a little ahead of me, and I pulled late. And the second one, I had a really good pull on it. It just, when it hit the ground, it skipped like a rock.
Yeah.
And that third one, I took that thing. I ran it so far that I went over the crown of the field because we was playing on a soccer pitch.
Yeah, so it's all high in the middle.
Yeah, it's all high. So I ran up the hill and ran so far I was actually going down the hill.
Yeah.
And I still threw that thing, and I had a really good pull. And it was like an 80, 85 degrees.
Yeah.
It stood. It skipped twice, dug
Just
in,
standing up, and
stood up, and went, "Fuck you."
Yeah, it was. Ross looked like he was about to die after his one turn. He came over and sat down. Said he felt like shit.
That was a legit caber.
That was a good. And Scott was like, "Oh, that's not even the Super A caber." And I'm like, "What the fuck is the Super A caber?"
He's blowing smoke.
I thought the other one was the Pro caber. This one was
That thing. You know, so you don't get too many of those in the South. You don't get zero.
you get
taper.
spindly sticks most of the time.
You'll get long and heavy or long and whippy. You don't get 18, 19 feet with no taper.
Yeah, with just nothing to it. It was.
I wish I would have had that on a different field.
No. So we can. How'd you do today anyway? Did you win Masters?
I
Is that
won
what
the
heard?
overall 40-49.
Okay, I wasn't even on the podium, so we don't need to talk about me. I know I did Chief, and then now that it's over, I can say I went and found the beer tent, so Scott can't kick me out if it's post game. I went and bought myself a handful of tickets and made good use of them before we went to Wade River Bar.
What Scott doesn't know.
Yeah, it won't hurt him. He doesn't have Spotify, I'm pretty sure. So
No, he gets all of his information from me mostly.
yeah, so hey, Danny, be cool. Don't tell him. So I wanted to have you back on mainly to talk about some of the stuff that's been going on Facebook. So one, I wanted to delve deeper into because I feel it got like one of the posts. I don't know if it was your original one or one that somebody shared had like 80 plus comments.
Yeah.
When you talked about ADs shouldn't pick capers that everyone's turning because the myth being everyone wants to see caper turns, and meanwhile the fact being they want to see 1 to 2 people turn a caper and everyone else struggle.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, and I'll give you the background. If you've ever been at a game, and like this, Stone Mountain last year was a pretty good example. We had a caber that they put on the field, and me and another guy almost turned it on the first time. Well, on the second turn, going to the second round, everybody was like, the AD comes, "Hey, we're going to get y'all a smaller caber." And I was like, no, I'm just going to turn this thing.
If 2 out of, and I mean, how big was your class?
It was like 10 people, but it was
So
Southeast
normal,
Championship.
yeah.
And
2 out of 10's a good ratio.
Stone Mountain's got a great crowd. And
Yeah.
they're super into it. And I was like, well, listen to this crowd right now. Every time someone throws it, they're oohing and ahhing. If one person turns his caber, it's going to be an eruption. And it's still on my Instagram account. And you can hear it in the background. I mean, the crowd goes crazy. I turned the caber. I was the only person to turn it, but everybody was coming up and they loved it. When you've got 10 people and 8 people turn the caber, people lose interest in it. They walk away because I can do that.
It's mundane.
Yeah,
It's
I do
no
that.
different than throwing lightweight.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There's nothing special to it. You know, if you've got 10 guys in at 30 feet on the sheaf, everybody's like, "Oh, look at those guys." But if you got 2 guys in at 30, you're like, "Oh, this means something."
Yeah.
So, you know, it's all about building the drama on that. And I wasn't necessarily directing it toward ADs. I was directing it a lot to the athletes, because a lot of time the athletes at these games, if it's not a championship or a huge game or whatever, the athletes will
You
be
get a
told,
say in what
y'all
you're
go
throwing.
pick your caber.
Yeah.
And they'll come out with a stick, and of course, you know, a lot of times the judges are like, well, whatever.
Yeah.
And
they're getting the paycheck either way.
oh, yeah.
So.
And or they got 10 other things going on at one time to try and get through, so they're like, it's just what you get. And, you know, I get a lot of flack a lot of times when I'm an athlete, and I'll go pick out a caber, and they're like, well, that's too much for the rest of the group. Well, the rest of the group needs to come up and get stronger.
Yeah.
Game time is not practice time, people.
No. I had that discussion with, not a discussion, it was very, very brief, with Trevor McMurray's son today, TJ Jr. Because he was like, hey, they bumped me up to the A's so soon. He was having trouble with the caber. Because we had plenty of people were picking our caber and moving with it, just very few were turning it. He's like, they moved me up from the B's so soon. I was like, well, you could just go practice caber. Like, I don't want to be a jerk, but that's kind of the option.
You grow more when you fail.
Yeah.
The reason I've made the improvements that I've made is because I've failed. I haven't hit what I wanted to hit, so I went and got better. And the only way to practice to get better in caber is to do caber. There is nothing in strength sports whatsoever, powerlifting, weightlifting, track and field, that equates to caber. It is totally unique to this sport.
And they're all so different. You can do all the close grip, high pull cleans that you want to in the world, but they're not the same.
No, it'll get you ready to pull on a caber, but picking it, balancing it, running with it, and knowing when to use that pull is all about experience.
Yeah, so you got to figure it out. Now, a discussion that I had for a little bit with Tom and Aaron at dinner tonight that I think, and I want to get your 2 cents on it, was, so with caber, it's very obvious, and it's similar with height events, for the crowd to see good versus bad, what does and what doesn't work, right? It either goes over, it doesn't. Same with sheaf, same with wob. And I'll get to the height things in a little bit. But with distance events, it's very different, I think. So would you agree that it's not the same for a crowd to try and pick the difference between a 50-foot lightweight and a 60-foot lightweight and a 65,
It's impossible to tell. And this is going to sound bad, but the only way you can tell is if you've got 8 guys throwing 50 feet with a 28, and then you get 1 or 2 guys throwing 65 to 70, and then everybody's like, wow. And I've seen hammer competitions where people are throwing 70s with a heavy hammer. A stud gets up there and busts a 95. Well, that's when you're throwing it over the guy holding a stick's head. People are like, oh wow, that
but
guy.
But if everybody's in the same, which we had a very balanced group today, and everyone was in that same pocket. We did have a weird thing. We don't know what was up, whether it was the marker or what was happening, but I swear we'd have one land, another one would look like it was 2 feet past it, and they'd mark them 6 feet apart. Like, they call out the distance, and we were all like, hold on a second, I don't... But to the crowd, that didn't make any difference, because they were all in that same cluster.
Yeah, that's really hard, and you've got to basically have a good announcer that's right there with you telling the crowd what's going on.
Which Buck does a good job. He talks to people a lot.
Buck is a showman.
Yes. And much like his mustache.
His mustache can judge wob.
Yeah. But that's what I thought was, because like the difference between the athlete side versus, you run more games than I do, but trying to run a game and show people and do all that, like the weird difference that I'm seeing now in the A class too is like a couple years ago, 13 feet won you half the A games you went to. And we had 4 or 5 guys still throwing it 14 plus today. And it's just, but the crowd doesn't realize what an insane spectacle that is. To have a bunch of amateurs still throwing it 14 feet is actually like amazing. That's a fantastic group of A's.
And did anybody walk over that weight to the crowd and let them pick it up?
Not today. They did at Savannah. At Savannah we had the time. Today by the time we got to Wob, we had 3 to 4 people watching in that corner.
Oh, yeah.
Like this game ran a little longer with the multiple stops, and by the time we got to that corner. Now, when we've got the bigger crowd, people have.
Yeah.
And it helps. I yelled them at Savannah, like we had 4 or 5 people clear 12. And I was like, he just threw 2 car batteries, one-handed, 12 feet in the air. How many, come on, this is worth...
That's the way to do it.
I know that we're all still in, and this doesn't look impressive to y'all, but...
Yeah, some of the biggest reactions I get is when I take that 56 to the crowd line and let all the kids, cause all the kids want to jump up, and then I'll look at their parents, because you can see the parents, the men and the women, looking back going, I was like, come on, you're not going to hurt it. I promise you're not going to hurt it. You look like a big, strong guy. And I'll see the macho guys walk up to them, and I'll hand it up there. And just as soon as that hand says, I'll drop it. And see their arm get jerked off. That's really good.
No.
And then another good circus trick I do with it is I'll put it on the ground and have everybody come pick it up, and then I'll wrap my pinky around it, pick it up, and pick it over the crowd line and walk off with it. And cussing the whole way because it hurts. But.
Yeah, you don't tell them that.
No, I don't tell them that.
It's
It's all part of the show.
Yeah, but no, it's we've hit another cusp, I think, generationally, where you've got a lot of guys that are going to start throwing bigger numbers, and that's very exciting.
The more athletes you get in, the more you're going to have that, and it's great.
Yeah, which brings me to my next point I wanted to make. So you made that Facebook post, and it had a lot of people talking about cabers and turning. So Matt made one like a week or so before asking about should there be point minimums for pros.
Yeah.
And we had a very in-depth discussion at dinner, and I just strictly want to play devil's advocate because I think there's validity to both sides.
Oh, absolutely.
And so you took the stance of you want pros for entertainment.
Well,
or tell me if I'm wrong.
Yes
What is
and
your
no.
Okay,
Yes and no.
so to provide context, people listening, if you didn't see it, Matt, who typically is on here with me, but he's out at Costa Mesa this weekend, made a post saying, should there be a point minimum for professional athletes in the NASGA Facebook group, and just let people kind of comment on it, which is fine. Danny, what was your 2 cents on that? Should there be?
He's I think he had the baseline of 7,000 NASGA score.
Which is what we've been told by several people. Like, hey, I think Matt interpreted it differently, and I could be wrong without having him here. That is usually like if an AM says, hey, what do I need to go pro? And you tell them, hey, throw around 7,000 points. That's a good
benchmark to see where you're going to be if you're going to be competitive as a pro. And that's basically where that came from, in my opinion.
Yeah.
To me, if you're going to do a point value to turn pro, then you're basing everything on I think what I said, a competitive or competition based system, which we don't have in the United States.
Yeah. We're a part of a festival. That's the majority of the model is a festival model.
Yeah, and it's all based on, all right, you're a good pro in this area, I can rely on you, here's some money to come through.
Part of that's relying, because we had the discussion of,
My personal belief on the way the pro system is about 30 years ago, there was a lot of good throwers, and some even better throwers got interested in the sport, and these good throwers who were making money went, we got to figure out a way to keep these studs out of this game because they're going to come take my lunch money from me. And then you get the invite system that pops up because of that, because they're like, hey, man, hey, Jeremy, you're a real good thrower. Hey, man, you're doing great. You know, if you go pro, you ain't ever going to get to throw again. You know, because you got to get those invites, and we're all taken right now because...
Yeah, because Massa's got its set 6 to 8 guys its invites. Shag's got its 6 to 8 guys it invites.
I've got my guys that I invite. You know, that's just the way it goes, because I know I've got a group of about 6 to 8 pros I can call, men and women on those.
And they'll be there.
And they're going to be there. And I'm going to pay them well. They're going to be entertaining. They're going to throw well. Now, I'm trying to blow that system up a little bit with the Open. Yeah. And I'm offering money to anybody who wants to show up.
Yeah.
And come play. So if you're going to base it on a competitive system, like a point system or a number system, then to me, what you're going to devolve into is the top 10 is going to get an invite
to every
game ever. And if you're out of the top 10, good luck to you. You better hope there's 3 games that weekend. So you get to the 15.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get, most of your games have a maximum of 5 pros.
Yeah, especially nowadays. Pre-COVID, you had a few that were a little different. Yes. But now I haven't seen...
Most of your games is
5 to 6. Or they do the team thing, and you end up with 3 to 4 men and 3 to 4 women.
Yep. And that's just the reality of it. So if you're going to base your system on performance based, then you better be in the top 10, or you're not going to get an invite here. And I don't like that system either.
No. So what I think you use is a good word there is the reality of it, right? Because I get what Matt is saying, and where Matt I think is coming from, if I've spent enough time around him, is for the Not the 1 year view of the game, not 2 years from now, but the 60-year view of the game, right? So let's say if we ever were to try to turn this into a legitimate sport and leave the festival model and have it stand on its own and be like Strongman, where World's Strongest Man is its own entity.
Yep.
If we were to try and do that, it should be performance-based.
Yeah.
To an extent. You don't want... If someone's incredibly khaki as a human, that's their problem. But relatively based on performance. Half Thor could be the biggest asshole in the world, but if he's going to show up and pull 1,200 pounds, they're going to invite him to shows.
Or 21 wob.
You're right. He does actually hold the... So you know what? That helps him too. But that's my point, is no one cares as long as he's doing what he's doing. But so the reality of it was, and the question I posed to Aaron and Tom, and I'm interested what your 2 cents as someone who runs a bunch of games and has been around it for a while, could we ever get out of the festival model? Or are we going to be forever stuck with it?
We're always going to be tied to a festival. We don't have to be hamstrung by the festival.
Okay.
And I believe, and this is another thing I'm working on right now, is the reason we're not on TV and we're not on ESP anymore, because we don't have anything we can market. Because back in the 90s and early 2000s, it was Ultimate Highland Games. And it was on ESPN. The joke is the Ocho.
The 12th, yeah.
The Ocho.
It was
and I remember watching it one night, coming home from the bars from college, and going, wow, this looks awesome, before I went to sleep. And what we don't have is something we can market to television. And what's marketable to television's playoffs.
Yeah.
A series of events that they can follow, that can build up. Because I keep on coming back to this word drama. Yeah. And that's what you need if you're going to be on TV.
You need people that can sit down and form a sentence. One is a point that Tom made.
Yes.
And some of the high-level athletes that we make, I don't think would present well on television as that kind of entertainment product.
No, but you get some of your older pros who, are ADs now, like your carryover Felts and all of them, and let them, give them a microphone and have someone leading them with questions, and that's going to be entertaining. I don't know if you ever sat down and talked to Kerry.
Yes.
That's entertaining. But people like him are Miles Wetzel, the guy who got me into it. A wealth of knowledge. Like one of the guys that I competed with, Jason Richards, who's a super athlete. I think he broke a world record a couple of weeks ago. And, he used to compete back with Miles when Miles was my age, and he was like 20-something years old, because Miles sent him a message that says, you're my age now. When you started, you was competing against me. And so that was funny. But having a playoff system, like, and this is what I'm proposing. I started the Women's East Coast Championship last year, which follows the model of the East Coast Championship for the men. And for people who don't know, the men's and women's East Coast Championships, if you win a game,
either an open or an A-class
open or an A-class game east of the Mississippi, a legitimate festival, not 3 guys thrown in the backyard, you're invited. They don't care what your numbers are. They don't care if you threw shit implements or underweight implements, because you're going to show up to that game and you're going to throw legit weighted and regulation implements. And whoever wins is the East Coast champion. And I love that. So I started it for the women. And next week it's going to be in Wilmington at Port City Highland Games. And it'll be the 2nd annual Women's East Coast Championship. Now, here's my proposal. And for you West Coasters, I'm trying to talk to some people out there to get a West Coast Championship started.
Have an East to West and a
now
Middle America.
Well, we're going to start with East-West.
All right.
We have East-West. Top 6 who show up and place at the East Coast, top 6 who show up and place at the West Coast. Now you've got a play-in national championship. There's no politics, no invites, all champions. You showed up on game day and you won. No crap numbers in NASGA or whatever, or
heavyathlete.com.
No one's going out and throwing a 12-pound or 13-pound stone and, hey, why did you just PR by 10 feet? Can we see that stone? Oh, it's in a river somewhere.
Yeah. So, that 28 looked real long.
Was that a wire hammer you threw?
Yeah.
So that's my next project.
Okay. But I think that's a step in the right direction of performance-based
It is.
metric. Because I like that. And so the whole thing, Tom and Aaron were both of the opinion that we can't outgrow the festival model. It doesn't work. And I hear their point to the extent of World's Strongest Man just looks better on TV than we do. I think because of the versatility and the different implements you can pick and all of that, and meanwhile we're tied to these 9. However you split those 9, theirs is just going to be more fun to watch.
And World's Strongest Man's got 1 flight going at a time, and we got 9.
Yeah. Now, what I will say, and this is my own personal gripe, as someone who has started running games, the fact that, like, I went and put a lot of work into making sure that my athletes had implements that weighed out right, a field that was as level as you can find it, trigs that were right, judges that were all certified judges, because I didn't have a Piper and Highland drums at my game. The guy that threw fantastic at my game doesn't get an ECC invite. Because the NASGA ruling is it has to have pipes, Highland dancing, heavy athletics, and clans. Meanwhile, I can put in all the work as an athletic director. The 28 that my guy who won, which was Timmy Leguizana, I always fuck up his last name. He went and won Southern Maryland the next game. So, like, it's fine. He's going. But he showed up to my game and won. He didn't get an ECC invite off of mine. Because there weren't those things.
I see, yeah.
And so why are we so tied to we're entertainment, not performance-based? Mm-hmm. But then when we do have a performance-based, if I can show you, I wrote the weights on all my implements. I went and weighed them all pre-game and said, it's 28.61 pounds. It's 56 point... My stone weighs this, my this weighs this. Here's my measured trigs. Here's my... Everything is to a T. One of my judges is the lady who runs ECCs, Alex. I love her to death.
Alex Duncan.
Yes. She was our judge for the A class. His game doesn't qualify him. And I'm not using this to pick on Alex or ECCs. I'm just saying
it's rules are rules.
It's the weird duplicity of our sport of, cool, we're a festival model. If we were to even try to grow outside of that, though, there's now no incentive. Because if I find just a venue who's got space and I can host cool athletics there, I can't attract the best athletes because they can't qualify for the bigger games because there wasn't a guy harping on a sheep's bladder 20 feet away from him, you know?
Well, it's my understanding that those rules were not made for amateur A's getting invites.
No, they're made for Pleasanton and all of the Celtic
for the
and
Celtic.
It
was made for the Celtic.
That's what I meant. So I just find it good, but it's the only set of rules we have that's unified and written down anywhere because we have nothing unified. We've got wing trigs most places. You've started using them. I've started using them because
wing trigs.
They're fantastic. And if you want to actually grow the sport, it's the easiest way to do it because I can go to high-level strongman and track and field people and say, stay in the box.
Yep.
And they can just move on with their day and they don't have to overthink it.
The wing trigs are still based off the 4'6" trig.
It's great. Meanwhile, Texas just ran a bunch of games.
Oh my God!
With like a 6.5 foot wide.
No,
trig.
6'9".
6 foot. That's yes.
And
you have people who have put their scores into NASGA and heavy and all that crap, throwing off of the biggest. It's half the size of this hotel room.
I'm on a forum with a lot of other ADs all over the country, and I brought up that to the private forum, and I was like, hey, what are we going to do about this 6'9" trig? Are we going to count world records? And their reply was they get no competitive edge with 6
How do you not?
My response
I had a 60-foot lightweight today that would have won my class.
My response
that I fouled out the left.
Apparently, you don't understand math.
You give me more room to run horizontal. I can throw further. You give me 2 sprints instead of 1.
Yes.
I'm dusting you.
And you know what they're trying to say is it's not don't matter that extra how much angle on the edge that goes back. It don't give the athlete any more competitive advantage. And
not even.
I'm going to have to disagree all the time. And
have these guys ever thrown?
Yes, they have.
In the last decade?
Yes.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I'm not going to name names.
How do you? And that's fine. I'm not going to ask you to, but I don't see how you can say that that's not. If it's not an advantage, then don't do it. Throw a standard or a wing.
I hate it for the athletes that's going out there and throwing, and then when they go everywhere else going, holy crap, I can't do this without fouling.
And I'll tell you what I hate more, and you're just a better person than me for taking that approach. I hate the people that are then going on social media and going, look at this 35-foot heavyweight I just threw. And I'm like, yeah, no shit, Sherlock, because you had 7 feet to run across.
I saw one athlete PR stone
by
and
a ludicrous amount, probably.
And when you look, you're like, there's no trig in the world other than in Texas that you're going to get that and not be a foul.
No, and I wouldn't necessarily, because again, if we're taking the sides of the coin of we're entertainment, I don't care. In the sense that, like, if you left those scores in Iron Podium, like if you did your sign up via some other third party site that is not a Highland Games database used for some sort of championship ranking or whatever, that's fine. I don't care what you do. But the second they either go into heavy athlete for Masters Worlds or NASGA for any number of pro championships or East Coast or whatever, you've muddied the water of a whole lot of people that agreed. It's already wild that we have standards versus wings. Yeah. But if we can all agree that those are the two options,
they are still based on a 4'6" front.
Yes, there is a standardized section to it. It's just whether you're accepting that extra foot out, basically in or not. Yeah. You know, and there's a uniformity in sense to that. Yeah. But if you just start picking random widths. I'll have a 7-foot wide trig in my next game.
Who's to stop you from going 7 feet? Yeah.
Heck, I'll lay the damn caber sideways, and as long as you stay behind it.
Well, and and their argument also was, well, people will cheat with their foot out, and how many times you've seen someone do almost a splits and on a standard trig, and then that would have been a foul on a wing. I was like, yeah, but those throws ain't going far either.
No, because the best of the best, it doesn't make a difference. No. If you look at the top end of the bell curve and the far end, it's not making a statistically relevant difference. It may make a difference for your B-level athletes. And a 25-foot Braemar versus a 20-foot Braemar, sure, yeah, they were able to do something. But when you start getting into the classes that quote-unquote matter, it's not. Yeah. And it's really, I think my difference between a wing trig and a non are 8 inches apart, maybe. And that's because I felt really good that day. I don't know that I couldn't throw that on one versus the other.
The only exception to that rule that I've seen in person is Spencer.
Yes.
When Spencer was in a wing trig, he was able to turn sideways, and he could really.
But he doesn't like a wing trig. He always wanted a standard when he threw.
I think before he gave it up, I could be wrong, but I think he preferred the wings.
Maybe. Spencer, come on the podcast. Tell me if I'm right or wrong. I don't get
because that's when he threw the world record with a 56 at my game is in a wing trig.
Yeah. I just think it averages out over a wing versus a standard because the front is the same and all of that. I think it all evens out. I think with a 6'9" trig, it does not.
You put a 6'9" trig out there, John Van Buren's going to be 2-turn.
Oh yeah, he could finally have enough room.
It's going to go 60. He's going to throw to 56, 55 feet.
Yeah,
because a lot of your big time pros that you see one turning. It's
because they're 6'7".
They're so tall and so big that when they try to do a 2-turn, they can't keep it.
Yeah, they're falling out the box.
Which I think I've heard even Spencer on a podcast years ago say, he changed the way his approach to keep from fouling out the left because he's such a super athlete. He's
going too fast and he's blowing out the left side.
Yeah.
One of my go-to rewatches over and over again is the 2018 Utah games.
Yes.
Because it's just such a good quality video of watching the pros or lightweight, heavyweight, all of that.
Yes.
It's the one that
you got Scott Farr in there.
Yeah. Which, Scott's a fantastic athlete, but it's a different looking throw than everyone else's because he's 200 pounds.
I've thrown with Scott. He's amazing.
Yeah. And that is the one when I have spare time in my office and I'm trying to just mentally think, I go watch that video over and over and over.
And competition.
It's fantastic. And Spencer's fouling out the left every other throw. No. And they safety turned like a 45-foot heavyweight. It was ridiculous. But fucking insane. That dude, I had that discussion with someone today of, it was with Tom still, because we were trying to discuss who knows the difference of what. And my argument was that I think Spencer had the biggest impact to date as a world champ. With just the way he was able to elevate him. He held like 7 of the 10 quote-unquote world records that we had at one point all at the same time, and it was insane. Like, John Van Buren's a 2-time world champ, and he's doing great, but not as many people know who he is, I don't think. And it's a post-COVID thing and all of that, all tied into one, but it tied back into that whole, will we ever be able to outgrow what we currently have, you know? Because you could, back to the point standards for pros, it'd be great if we could set one. It would hurt us right now. Mm-hmm. And the argument would be, it'll help us in the long run. You know, hey, we're going to set this standard and we're not going to invite pros below X mark. And yeah, we're going to have a smaller, less competitive pro class now with the hope that 10 years from now, we're going to be better. But I think what would ultimately potentially happen is you would just lose a lot of festivals. They wouldn't pay people. They wouldn't show up.
Yeah.
And instead of being able to save that money and pay it to 8 Spencer Tylers 10 years from now, you would actually just lose a bunch of festivals and everybody would go under and you wouldn't be able to... It's
that, and I also believe you would discourage athletes who are on the cusp from putting in the extra time to becoming great.
Yeah.
Because, you know, a lot of your world champions, going back, if they were throwing a long time, even in the pro rank, before getting to that level. And they were still coming up because, you know, I encourage B-class athletes all the time. You know, I was like, should I turn B? Yes, absolutely. Yes, turn B, get in the A class. Yeah, are you going to get your butt whooped? Probably, but you're going to learn so much more.
Which I think is one of the differences that, and the reason why Matt has ruffled some feathers, because Matt has had a different experience if he threw for 2 years and went pro. Because he's just...
I can see where people don't like that.
and it also, it has skewed the way that he views the sport because he didn't have to sit there and get his dick kicked in for a long time. He's thrown for 2 years and he's already a top 10 AM, or a top 10 pro, excuse me, already. I mean, that's a path that not many people take. So he says, yeah, we should have a standard. It is really fucking hard for somebody to come into this sport and in 2 years end up, I mean, he threw like an 87-foot lightweight in training the other day.
That's crazy.
That doesn't happen for everyone, you know?
No.
So while I would love for that to happen, and I'd love to be able to draw in half a dozen mats, I don't know that there's a way for us to pull that off that wouldn't hurt us so much in the short term that we would just choke the sport out. I don't know. It'd be cool if it did. It'd be cool if we could say you have to throw 7,000 points, point blank, period, and we move on. That'd be great. But I don't know that we have the size to sustain or to do that.
I don't think we do. We don't have enough athletes right now. Now, you know, will that change in 5 years? Will my opinion of that change in 5 years? Yeah, possible. I'm open-minded person. I'm open-minded to anything except a 6'9" Trig.
We gotta have standards.
Sorry, Texas.
Yeah.
You're not going to get me on board with that.
Go ahead and secede.
Until you can show me the mathematics on why that doesn't
I can tell you right now, you put me in one, I'm PRing. You put anybody in one who's worth a darn, they're PRing.
Anyway, well, I need to move on from that.
No, we can make the whole podcast just bitching about 6'9". That's fine. I'm going to make this the 6'9" podcast.
Oh, man. Until we get past that, though, I don't think. Could it change in the future? Yeah, but we need more athletes, and we need different athletes then, and we need to grow a little bit more before we start putting limits on things.
I think it's just going to be slower going than being able to say right now, hey, we need to do minimums. I think it's just going to take more time.
It does, because, you know, the pandemic really, really hurt.
It set us back a lot.
It set us back 20 years.
Yeah.
I think it was better, more people into it 20 years ago.
Oh, there were, for sure, pre-COVID. I mean, the atmosphere that I had at games pre-COVID-19 was more excited than it is now, without a doubt. And I was throwing about as good as I am now, almost, going into that, and then everything took a dive because everything just went away.
Yeah. I think it's coming back, though. I think it's
coming back.
Back.
Today was a great example of that.
Great example.
Greenville was shout out to Aaron George. He put on a fantastic time for us.
Yes, he did.
That was a great game. If anybody ever gets a chance to throw at Greenville, I would recommend it. Yes. tried to make a point of getting out of Virginia to throw more games that I historically have not.
Thank you.
So I've been in South Carolina twice this year. I've been to Georgia once. I'll be in Maine for No Fame's home game in a couple weeks.
That's in Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
Yep.
I clearly didn't understand maps because I didn't realize when I registered it was a 10-hour drive for me. I was like, Jesus Christ.
10 hours is nothing. Come on.
I'll do it.
I live in the middle of Alabama.
So I had 5 years in of doing all the games near me, throwing 4 or 5 in Virginia, and then 1 in North Carolina, 1 in PA, 1 in, and I was like, I'm tired of doing that. So I've bypassed a couple of Virginia games so far. I'll probably bypass a couple more to try and just go do ones I haven't done.
Man, that's great. I love that. I love traveling all over the place and doing games.
If I have time this fall, I'm going to try and make it down to some of yours. It's just whether work allows it or not, but that's a hard thing to plan out. So, anyway, I thought that was an interesting discussion to have of can we even outgrow the festival model? And if so, so let's say we try to, right? Let's say you try and do what you did with Backyard, or what I'm trying to do with having these games that are outside of Celtic quote-unquote festivals, right? That don't have... How do you get people to start realizing that they're still athletically as legitimate as one that has all that other stuff going on?
Well, what I did with like the Backyard and the games in Alabama is, even though I started as an athletics only, I still developed relationships with the clans and the people who would be at the festivals, because
Aaron preached about clans all day today. I sat there and picked his brain.
They're important.
Clans.
That is who supports and funds your athletic competition. Because go to Logan's Roadhouse here in Greenville, South Carolina, and go, hey, do you want to sponsor the Highland game?
Yeah.
Maybe they say yes, probably not. But if you've got the...
Oh, no, I'm a real sweet talker.
If you got the Scottish clan support, though, they will show up, and people breed people when it comes to that. If you get more eyes and more people hanging around, a crowd breeds a crowd.
Yeah.
And we had a game, 2021 in Huntsville, Alabama. It was at a gym on the side of a road. And before we knew it, the parking lot was full because people were wondering, what in the world are we doing? And now it's called the Rocket City Scottish Festival. And we've turned it to a complete festival, and it's centered around the games.
Yeah.
And we will be having it October the 5th, the same day as my West Monroe, Louisiana game. So I'll be doing 2 games in one day.
Nice. That was one of the struggles I had, because so far every venue that's approached me has been places that don't have festivals yet.
Well,
they run 2 of them so far are places that do like corn mazes and all that stuff in the fall, and they do fall festivals, and they're like, hey, we want to start branching out, and they've been looking at this, and I have been trying to stress to them, you need to go do your clans and your vendors. And I sent them the spreadsheets of here's all your contacts for everybody that I know goes to games in Virginia, and it's a 2-page Excel document of just Scottish clans and vendors, and trying to get them on board to like reach out to them soon enough. And I'm like, you need to get them to show up. Yep. If you can get them to show up, we can get everything else in order. And we fell short of that at Lloyd's this year, and we ended up just turning it into a spring festival. And it was fine. The athletes showed up. Everybody said they had a great time. I killed a turkey that morning, so I was happy. Right. It worked out well for me. But it's just been trying to get them to realize that they need to at least do that. If you want to have other stuff going on, I'm all for it. One of the places I'm talking to now runs a rodeo every year. And I think it'd be cool as hell to have Highland games going on at a rodeo.
Yeah.
It's like an 800-acre vineyard. They have the space. We could do it all. But I got to get them making those phone calls and sending those emails.
Getting the organization apart, it is the biggest part, and it's the least fun of it.
And it's weird, again, because we're tied to the festival model, trying to educate these places. Some of them don't know what the Highland Games were. They haven't been to them before. They just know they exist, and they know they draw a crowd. And I'm going out there trying to say, okay, from your side, we are paid entertainers. You really don't have to think about it deeper than that if you don't want to. But if you want to keep drawing good athletes, and if you want to keep I, as an AD, need to be able to sell them on that.
Yeah.
And part of being able to sell them on that is, hey, your scores are going to qualify you for bigger things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you don't do that, cool, but I can't promise you 60 athletes a game. I can say, we'll get you 25 to 30.
Yeah.
You know, and it's this weird catch-22 where, hypothetically, if we could snap our fingers and grow this sport to stand alone, it would no longer be an issue. Because the athletics would just be the athletics. But we don't have that. And it's a weird fallacy of what we're doing.
It will always be that way, I believe.
And I don't know if we could ever...
Until we get some type of marketing or...
and it's got to be unified,
some type of media.
It's got to both be presented well, and we also all have to agree on something, which... Back to that 6'9" Trig, apparently none of us can't... Who's that? Why did they do that? What was the... I understand. Okay, I don't understand, but I hear them saying it doesn't add a benefit. But who the hell proposed it in the first place?
They said it was for safety because people were tripping over the wings.
They need to throw better.
Well, yeah.
You're running with a goddamn tree. I don't... Stop telling me it's safe.
I remember watching have you ever seen Ryan Vieira's video, YouTube? It's like 5 hours long. It's a 2-part.
Yeah.
And it was VHS, and they turned it into a YouTube video. It's got the good psychedelic music that if you're ever insomnia, listen to that music, you're out in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But 1996 Scotland World Championships, they painted the wings on the ground.
Okay.
There was no board.
I've seen that done before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You basically have your 4'6", and then you just paint the lines.
Paint the wings onto it.
So, if you step on a line, it's still a foul.
Yeah.
So if you're worried about safety, paint the daggone
wing. And just tell them to stay in it.
So, but that was one of the reasons.
I know. First of all, how many people today stepped on Trigs in a standard Trig? Half a dozen of them. It happens.
Yeah.
That's... Nothing about any sport is safe. People have died playing football. People have died playing baseball. People will... I almost lost a knee today. I swear to God, it grazed my kilt. A 56 came out of Chance's hand early.
Oh my gosh.
And I'd shit you not, Danny, 2 inches this way, I wouldn't have a left knee. I'd be in the hospital right now. We wouldn't be doing this. I was standing next to our judge's camp chair, who thank God she wasn't in, and it flew past me and grazed my kilt and took her chair out.
Oh, wow.
Because he went to go into his throw and just lost it, and it shot straight out. And I didn't even know what had happened. I felt something go, and I watched the chair fly, and I was like...
What?
And it didn't hit me till a second later. I was like, oh, I almost became permanently crippled for the... just...
Oh, I'm a permanent AD now.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. And that's next year. I'd be going through quite a bit of because it was level with my kneecap and just went straight past me.
My youngest daughter got hit with a 56 in November. She was out marking.
Yeah.
And she turned her head, and not the athlete's fault. And she's 15 years old, and she turned around with just enough time to see it coming at her, so she was able to jump. So she was in the air when
so
it
just
hit her
pushed
leg.
her with
yeah. But it was a nice bruise. We took her to the hospital.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing was broke. Nothing was torn up, luckily. But, accidents happen. Just like over in Europe, that guy he wasn't even at the festival.
Yeah.
He got hit with a hammer. Died.
Yeah, Cody still has a bruise on his shin where he took a stone to the shin at Savannah because it just bounced and caught him right on that bone. He had a fucking golf ball on his shin all day. They tried to tape down, and 3 weeks later, he still got it sitting there. So I think the argument of safety, when you could just tell people to practice and throw better, is... Look, if you have a C class where everyone's stepping on it, throwing lightweight, there's nothing wrong with as the AD saying, y'all aren't throwing lightweight anymore today. You need to go home and practice. We're moving on. I mean, there was a video a while back that I saw. It was this girl, and she stopped doing it. Thank God. She's progressed past it. She started with her back to the throwing area, and she'd do this, and she lost one early, and it, went off into the crowd somewhere or something, or into the group of people. I was like, it's unsafe. Yeah. But that's where you, as the AD or the judge, get to go, you're either going to stop that, or you're just going to sit the rest of this one out.
Yes. Yeah, and usually it's a really colorful thing.
And it tends to go back to what we were talking about with it's okay to not turn a caber.
Yeah.
And it's okay to foul all of your lightweight throws. And it's okay. That's a part of it. Yeah. And that's the only way you're going to learn.
It's okay to fail.
And if you just keep widening the trig and keep shortening the tape and keep doing, you're not helping. That is more of a detriment than any of the stuff we've talked about so far.
It's not our job as ADs to make this sport easier.
No. It should have some level of legitimacy to it.
Yes.
It should have cabers that are difficult to turn. It should have trigs that are standardized in some way, shape, or form. And if you can't throw in it, that's fine. That's why the novices exist. That's why the Bs exist. Yep. You don't get to throw in a premier class until you can do that consistently and well. Yep. And it's just...
And here's another of my pet peeves, how we treat juniors in the sport.
So I haven't been at a lot of games with juniors. So
well, do you know what what a 16 or 17-year-old junior male would throw?
Probably something 14.
14 is a lightweight.
Okay.
21 is a heavyweight. They throw the women's masters.
For like a 17-year-old?
Yeah, and you get down here to South.
I work at a high school now. There are some 17-year-olds bigger than me.
Yeah, they're strong and they're fast.
And are they going to one turn it's going to look goofy? Yes.
Probably. But are they going to take a 21-pound weight and throw it 20 feet in the air?
Yes.
Absolutely. Now, what happens next year when they age up into
and they
18?
Have to throw more than double that.
Well, their lightweight went from 14
to 28.
To 28, which is 7 pounds heavier than their heavyweight from last year. So you know what they're doing?
Yeah, they're
Screw this. Mm-hmm. Screw this. I ain't doing this anymore.
You're not doing them any favors. Those numbers are fine for a 12-year-old you want to get into this, to have them lob it out there. That's not...
So at my games, I've got a thing going now where if you're 16, 17 years old and you're under 200 pounds,
21
you
to
throw
42.
45.
Okay.
35. I'm sorry, 35.
All right.
35 and 21.
Yeah.
21's your light play. But if you're over 200 pounds, you're getting to 42.
Yeah.
And so far, I've had juniors come out and they're learning and they're sticking with it.
And they might throw 15 feet, but that's fine because they're 17.
And I've got some from the parents like, well, he wants to come out here and break this world record.
The world record's not real.
Yeah.
It's a junior. I'm sorry. But it's... So we had this same thing. Me and Matt have talked about this.
Let's make another one. How about that?
And masters are notorious for this. And they're like, oh, well, are you offering a 40 to 45 class? Or those are flights. They're not classes.
Yes.
You are a master or not. Until you get to above 60 when you're throwing a different weighted implement, you're just a master. If your game wants to give you awards based on 40 to 50 and 50 to 60 or however they want to cut it up, that's fine. But you're just a master.
Yeah, and that's where Masters International, they keep rules from records from 40 to 44, 45 to 49, 50 to 54. Which
they're using heavy athlete now.
Yes, they are.
They've been in talk with
it's working
Ted.
well.
It's been going well. We're finally getting a lot of the bugs out of it. It has become a very smooth system.
Yes.
So that's
I put scores in a game and created it was my Minden game, and I had no problem. If I can do it, everybody can.
It honestly, and if you want to even use it pre-NASGA, it becomes easy because you as the AD, you can add every athlete that was in there, input them, change them if you made a typo, which I still have no idea how to change a score in NASGA if you happen to get it wrong. You
can change a score, but you can't change an athlete. Like if I put you in as Jeremy Futrell and I put 3 L's on your name, you're there forever.
I'm in there for forever.
Jeremy Futrell, la la la.
It's ridiculous. So it's really nice being able to go in there and change that up. All right, so we've talked a lot about a lot of random things.
Yes. This is the most ADD.
No, and that's fine. Everyone will listen and they'll have a great time and they can just pick through whatever bit of info they like. So back to our original thing, because I said this on when Tom shared yours, I said there should also be minimum opening heights, I think.
Oh, yes.
Nothing bothers me more, and it tends to happen more at the end of the year than the beginning, because what you'll have a bunch of either newer athletes or less athletic people that show up to a game, and they go up and tell their judge, well, I have no height at Sheaf all year. Can we open it at 12?
No.
Stop it.
That's the biggest pet peeve I ever have.
Because, again, at that point, I think you're working against the sport. It's no longer about can we or not outgrow the festival model, or can we or not do this, that, or the... Just no height it. Yes. Open your sheaf and your wob at respectable amounts to where it's the same as the caber. Everyone now has a metric for what's good and what's not. Because it's fine if they watch 4 or 5 people go out at opening height. Because then you're going to cheer more for the 4 or 5 people that throw the next 3 heights.
Yeah. If you're having to lower the opening height and your excuse is I need a NASGA score, you shouldn't be worried about NASGA scores.
Yeah. Getting 200 points on your sheaf.
Sorry.
When you should be getting 700 points on your sheaf.
There is no B or novice world championship.
No, there's an amateur.
So
And it's the same with, masters gets broken, but you were an amateur, a pro, or a master. Those are the classes you were in.
I have a funny story.
Okay.
Back in 2019, NASGA Legends, its first year NASGA Legends. Did I ever tell you about the opening height? Okay, well, so we're at NASGA Legends. It's the first one. It's legit. Kerry had invited like the top 10.
Oh yeah, he put
everything into it pre-COVID, and it was an invite-only game.
Yeah.
And some of the biggest names from all over the country was there.
Yeah.
And
so at the time, Valeni was still doing my weight coaching.
Yeah, Zach Riley was our coach, was our judge. So we go to weight over bar, and the bar started out at 14, which is a modest height for
a bunch of
masters 40 to 44 at that
legends throwing 42s. That's
yeah. It's a very doable weight. It's the same thing as opening height for an A class at 11 or 12.
Yeah,
same thing. Well. This one guy goes up to Zach and goes, 14's too high to start off. We need lower. And Zach said, you need to go take that up a KO. So this guy walks across the field, which Kerry is MC, AD, a little bit of everything. He's got the microphone in his hand. And this guy walks up and says, hey, why are we starting at 14 and Wob? That's too high. Kerry gets his microphone, puts it up to his mouth and goes, if you can't hit 14 and Wob, I'm ashamed I invited you. It's just the most gangster thing ever.
It's true, though.
It's true. It's so true.
That is an appropriate height for that level of competition.
Yeah, if you can't hit it, go get better.
That's it. Or if you, by some fluke, get invited and you know you can't hit open, tell them, I'll see you next year.
Oh, Wob is one of those things where you can be a great thrower or a great this, and then for some reason, Wob just doesn't click with you.
We've got a guy who has started training with us over the past year like that, Brandon. I'll pick on him. I know he'll listen, and I've told him this to his face. Dude's good for almost a 28-foot sheaf.
Yeah.
And he struggles with an 11-foot Wob.
Yeah. Well, it happens. And it's just because you can be the strongest person on earth, but if you can't come out of the hole fast, Wob is going to suck.
Well, he can't get far behind him either. Something about he's short stroking. He's barely coming behind his ankles, and he's trying to pull up, and it's just not. It's not clicking with him.
Sounds like me.
Well, you're a master. It's different. He's still in his 30s. He should be able to reach a little. It should be. And I understand that. Like, look, if we were going to make a standard, you'd have to consider. Some days there's going to be bad weather, and then some days there's going to be this, that, and the other. So, but 14 for a championship master game is reasonable.
Yeah.
So, what would you, as an AD, if you had to impart advice, if we were going to break this down into, let's say, A's and below, make those 2 different groups, and then masters and then women, what would you consider your Wob heights? Because I know what my answer would be. I'm curious what your...
If you're an A, we're starting to Wob no less, and when I'm making out my rosters, I look to see who's there. And I look to see your numbers, and then I make my judgment on that.
Okay.
But an A class, if I've got a true A class, I'm starting to Wob at 11, maybe 12, depending on who's there.
Because my vote would have been 12. So,
but it depends on who's there, because I'm trying to put on a show, so I know everybody's overall numbers. And I'm going to take that and take that.
You don't want it to be over too soon, too.
Yeah.
If you just have a field of 13-foot throwers and you open at 12, your Wob's going to be done.
And, there's no one-way answer for anything that I give. I'm always in a range, and I try to stay within a range. For a good 40 to 49 class, we're starting at 13 or 14 in my at what I want to do. 50s, I'd probably drop it down to 12, 13 in that range, 12, 14. But, some of the 50 classes, they're hitting high up. Sheaf, I'm sorry, the bar in we're going at my big, larger games with a lot of athletes. We're not starting less than 20, and that's for every group. And this group they can only hit 14. Well,
then you get a 0 today.
As long as I got a couple athletes in there that can hit that, that's where we're going. But we got to move it, and I will make concessions for maybe a class that you got a bunch of people who don't do. But if I go less than 20, we're jumping up by 3s.
Yeah,
and we're going to make up that ground real quick.
So I don't disagree with you for a lot. I'd say the lowest I ever want to see a sheaf bar is 18 feet.
Okay.
And then you are moving by 3s. You're going 18, 21, 24.
And
Because
then
those
by
are
2s.
Reasonable. Yeah, and then once you get to either 24 or 27, you start moving by 2s. That's fine, depending on how you're feeling.
I've done 17, 20, 23, 26.
Yeah, I don't like seeing less than 18. I've been at games where they've opened it at 14 because, someone hasn't gotten a score this year. Congrats, you get to 0. I don't know what this...
Well, I solve a lot of that with I don't let novices throw sheaf.
Also fine.
Yeah, because I've seen them stab themselves. They're using other people's forks.
Yeah.
And I almost had to murder one of them because I told them, look, here's my fork. Do not stab it into the ground. And the first thing they did was stab it in the ground. And it was give me my fork, y'all are off my field.
Okay, well, I'm not the only one that doesn't like people putting their fork in the ground. It's why I stopped handing mine out.
Yeah.
Because people will sit there and go, and then they'll just start talking and get my...
Me and my sheaf fork go a long way together. I don't let anybody
I'm trying to keep the rust off of that as much as I can and keep it from dulling. If you could keep it out of the fucking clay.
I'm the one that's sharpening that thing.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't like seeing it below 18. If it's an A class, 20. It just have some... Valenti bullied me for years about... If you're a man, you're throwing 20 plus.
Yeah.
You shouldn't come in below 20. And so I no height at sheaf today, but I'll take a no height at above 20 feet than I will doing anything at 18.
And if I got a B class, I'll look at the B class and, maybe...
Well, I think that factors in, too. If you have a B class and an A class thrown the same day, I think you can...
Well, that means if you got a B class and if you've got an A and a B class, that means you're not running one open. Then, my A class, I'm probably going to start at 22.
Yeah.
And if I've got a B class, I'm probably going to drop it down to maybe 17 and allow some of the newer athletes to try to get there and get some experience because they are Bs. And if I've got a B in there throwing 26, 28 feet, he's not going to be a B next game.
Yeah, no, that's... And they said today they promoted like 4 guys out of the Bs to As.
Oh, yeah.
Which I'm a fan of. Which is against Shag's rule book, but again, Shag's and our rules in our sport apparently are...
Well, those guys,
they want to be.
They came to me also and they asked me my opinion. They showed me their numbers, and their numbers
are, at least in 5 of the 9 events, relatively competitive, which is fine. Are you going to go win your A game? No,
they asked
but that's
me,
fine.
What would you do with this person? He'd be throwing A class in my games.
Yeah.
But, there's a few hosses in that group.
One guy was taking shots at 15. He didn't make it, but, to pull at 15 feet in a B class is ridiculous. Go to the A class.
Please, can I have your back and hips for
right. That'd be great.
I PR'd and wob today.
Yeah, that's right. You spinning, so it don't count.
I was using voodoo.
Well, I want to talk about spin and wob in a second and the records with that because I'm confused. So, I'd agree with you there. I would say I don't ever want to see a wob standard under 10 feet.
No, absolutely not.
Like A's, we're opening 11 to 12. Weather dependent is my main consideration. If it's good weather, you're opening at 12. Most of the field.
I'll make a concession for on 10 feet for women's groups that are newer women's groups.
That's got 28. I still want them to throw 28 or a 10 foot.
Yeah, but they're 5'5", 5'4".
I throw more than twice my height. They can do it too. And
it depends on the situation.
I hear you.
Time.
I know, but all right. So speaking of women in WOB, that's a good transition to what I'm talking about is spinning versus standing. I'll throw names. Here's where I'm confused. Kendra Danzer threw a standing WOB world record as a Masters woman of 20, 21 feet.
Yeah, she is strong.
Insanely strong. And athletic. She's a good thrower all around.
Oh, great, yeah. Willie is also.
Yeah. Willie has stepped it up over the last year.
Yeah.
Tom and I were talking about it today.
Willie's been eating his spinach.
He has. He's been eating something. So, anyway. Kendra set a 21-foot record as a Masters woman throwing the 21 weight for height.
Yep.
And then like a week or two later, someone threw the, quote, spinning world record at 17 feet, something like that. Even less than that, maybe.
What age class was it?
It was a Masters women. So
they're broken up into 4 years.
And they may be, but here's my point, counterpoint. Why the hell are the spinning wob and the other one different? Because if Kendra Dancer, this is an audio medium, so this is no one any good. If before she threw her 21-foot spinning wob, went and just stood there and spun a circle and then threw it the way she always did, would she own both world records?
Well,
I find that silly about our sport.
The reason there's two is because, once again, back in the day...
Well, the conception was always that spinning was easier, right?
It is. I can vouch for that.
And I understand, but...
Because I'm a spinner now. I've converted to the dark side.
Well, you're in a 42 now, which I would argue makes it much nicer.
It's really easier to spin.
What I've always told people is if you throw the 56, unless you are insanely athletic and strong all at the same time and somehow still in shape at the end of the day... stand.
Yes.
I mean,
when I competed against you in the A class back in Columbia, I didn't spin with that 56. I stood there.
Because you like your shoulder attached.
Yeah.
You have to either be an athletic master or a very strong female or an athletic lightweight or someone, not a 56 to throw a spinning.
The only person I've seen spin with a 56 is the
Zolk.
Burchett. No, Zolk don't spin.
No, he spins
Zolk is, of course, I mean...
Well, he's got...
Zolk is a...
He can scratch his ankles standing up, so...
I've watched in person Zolk throw weight over bar, and it's a thing of marvel.
Yeah. But yeah, the Burchetts. But they're a weirdly fast bunch
They're supremely athletic, and they've been doing it since they were 15.
Yes. They've been throwing for a million years.
Yes.
And in the Highland, not track and field, they've literally just been throwing
they grew up in the Highland Games.
Yeah. So they're an outlier, and it's not fair to associate the two. So I have never recommended to hardly anyone to try and spin with the 56. It just...
I believe Spencer Tyler owns the standing and spinning world record with 56.
But I just don't... I don't see the point of keeping them separate. For the fact that we don't do that with any... We don't keep 1 and 2 turn records separate. We don't keep 1 wind, 2 wind, 3 wind hammer turns. So how is... Why do we... Why? Why?
Because the people who owned the standing world record wanted to outlaw the spin.
Then learn to spin. Get better. It's our same argument for the Trig. If that is somehow superior, either learn to do it or shut up.
It is really, for majority of the human population except Mike Zolkowitz, it is a cheat code. And for like me, it doesn't matter how strong I get. I've been in law enforcement for 24 years.
Yeah, your right hip is shot.
Riding in a car with a gun belt on for this long, or sitting in the office now. There's positions I can't come out fast.
Yeah.
And spinning gives me the ability to go, in my class, I have to be over 18 feet to be competitive.
Yeah.
And at the big games. And spinning gives me that.
Yeah. And it's, I understand that 1 is technically easier, but a 2 turn's technically going to go further on the whole than a 1 turn.
True.
So why are those records not separate? So why is a 3-spin hammer not kept separate?
Because
what's the point of writing it down?
Because someone didn't want their record taken.
I just find it so silly, because then how do you define them? Because literally, to my point, Kendra could stand there, do a ballerina spin with a weight in her hand, plant her feet, throw it 21 feet in the fucking air, and then would she own both? And also,
I guess so.
What is and you've been in this longer than I have and running games longer than I have. Am I insane for thinking it's the goofiest thing for ADs to take a thing and set it on a postal scale when they're done to prove? Because we do run a festival model where entertainment, the world record is whatever it is. And I appreciate it from the side of they want to show the effort of, hey, but if your scale at your local post office in 1 picture is what it takes to certify a world record...
And who's to say that postal scale's not weighted heavy, because they get paid?
Who's to say that's right?
They get paid more.
Who's to say I didn't stick 6 washers behind the weight that you can't see in the picture?
Or that washer is underneath that sheaf. Or how about I put some water in that sheaf before I
verify the weight, but I didn't show you pictures of it on a carpenter's square to show you the length with the handle laid out. And I didn't show you the.
I don't agree with that either. And what I do is I have a set of scales that I've got. I bought a pair of postal scales that travels with me, and I've got a 16-pound shot, Olympic shot. That 16 pounds
is your basis.
It's a 16-pound Olympic shot.
Weighs 16.
So when our world record is broken, I take it over there. I put the scale on a hard surface. I have 2, 3, 4 people standing around me. I put that 16-pound shot on top of that scale. It reads 16.0. I weigh the implement, and then I measure the implement in front of everybody. So now I've got witnesses. I've got a weight, and to me, that's the best way of doing it.
Yeah.
And I've actually had implements at a couple of my games when I was starting off that didn't make weight, and I think Adrian Wilson, Teresa Nystrom both broke a world record, and I had to go to them that day and go, sorry,
didn't make it.
It didn't make it. I don't know who brought this weight. It's not mine, and it's ultimately it's my fault.
Yeah, I made a point when I ran the Lloyd games. I had Matt give me all his implements a week early, and I took all the ones that I was going to use, and I gave him a full coat of paint. I set them all up, and I weighed all of them to make sure they were at weight or heavier, just because I wanted to make sure. No one was throwing world records at, but Kendra was there. She wasn't throwing 21 feet that day, but I just wanted to make sure they weighed in right. And honestly, what more are you going to ask of anyone to do? Because who the hell's writing any of this down? What do we... It's just goofy. The things that we choose to bicker over and the things that we choose to let slide make
That's right.
no sense to me.
Except the 6'9" Trig.
That's the thing. We're gonna put a pink hunk of steel on a postal scale and call it fine when you could do any number of things to change that. Because it's weighed in like 2 days later. What? Yeah.
To me, it needs to be measured and weighed.
Meanwhile, we'll let them throw a 6'9" Trig.
Right there in front of everybody.
You know? I'm baffled. I don't understand it. It's just goofy.
Are we going to take the lightweight athletes and go and carry them to the postal scale?
Right? That's what you have them weigh in the best way you can, either however you're going to. And that's the other thing. Are we ever going to standard? Are we doing 24-hour weigh-ins? Are we doing day of weigh-ins?
Well, I like the way Masters International. You know, they've come up with a day before weigh-in, which I prefer that, especially being in the Southeast, because you get athletes who dehydrate and starve, and you know that's a safety concern for me on the field, because you know, especially Masters athletes, you know, it is what it is. We're older, you know, but. The way the other lightweight is, they have a set standard of the day of, and it's just the way it is.
Yeah, and you got to pick one, but like, whichever way it is, who cares?
Yeah.
I gave them the option in my game to do either. I said, you can show up from this time window to this time window at the gym, or we're going to try and have a scale day of.
That's exactly what I do.
And whichever way you can cut it. If your travel allows you to be up there, you know, check into your hotel and then come weigh in, sweet, do it.
I tell the Masters, you know, I'll be here between these hours at the fields. Drop by. I'll put you on my trailer. You can weigh in, and I tell the regular lightweights, come out here, and I'll be here at this time. I'll be here usually about 6:30 in the morning. That way you get to go get something to eat and something to drink.
Yeah. I don't know. It's all goofy because I'm constantly caught in that catch-22 because I agree with Matt in that we need to have standards. We need to have something. If we ever want this sport to be better than it is, which it comes from a place of wanting the sport to be better than it is, we got to do something. But then the reality sets in of
how are we going to do that?
And how much can you realistically do? We could say all these things and try and implement them tomorrow, but would we choke ourselves out in the meantime?
The great thing
is if we kill the game, then
the great thing I found about this is, you know, it's okay to disagree on everything, and it's okay to keep on going the way you think you need to go with things, but we have to start looking at things as a gradual change. We express our ideas, come up with a consensus on, I think that's right, and I think this is right, and then bring a gradual change.
You know what's wrong? A 6'9" Trig.
Except 6'9" Trig was dumb. we'll get so much hate for that.
And you honestly, you could make the. I've had this conversation with some other people who shall remain nameless. You could make the same argument for lightweights. So I think the initial intent of that class was essentially for juniors. The intent behind having a lightweight class was to get younger, less developed people in to the sport, and that was the point. They were supposed to throw the 28 and the 42 because you're 17 and maybe you just haven't progressed past that point yet. And then now you just have a bunch of adults that would sooner dehydrate themselves to try and set a world record in something. And
and also, I've heard, of course, this is a reason, this and that was a reason, but if you get a different class, why are you throwing a different weight?
You want to be a lightweight, that's fine, but throw the 56. There's an argument to be made. But I had this discussion too the other day about shot puts versus stones. Why don't we throw a 16-pound shot? I know it looks neat and it's cool.
It goes back to tradition.
Scotland throws a shot.
Yeah.
The people that still have castles on their land throw a shot put.
Yeah.
Why don't more games over here do it? I know everyone won't.
Because the festivals like to see you watch throw a rock.
I know, but wouldn't you love to get a hold of a shot and actually...
Personally, me? No.
So I always thought that until last year I started training with one. God bless it, it's nice.
I've thrown a shot put a couple times, and when this finger touched the back of my hand, I was like,
you were out?
nah, that's it. I'll man-hand and paw this stone.
Yeah, I'll just do that. Yeah, I don't know. It's all goofy, but...
I love the sport, man.
I love it. It's why I'm doing this. It's why I'm staying up in my hotel room till almost 10 o'clock at night. Talking about it.
Elizabeth's already sent me a couple messages. Hey, are you coming back?
Yeah, no. He's staying here tonight. Deal with it. So. Oh, yeah, I got something to do. All right. Anyway. All right. Well, I think we can wrap it up there. This has been all over the place, but it was getting stuff out of my brain and trying to get things out there to people. Just to... if nothing else, if you want to make an argument for gradual change, the way we do it is by talking about it.
Yeah.
So you might as well get people talking about it.
Hey, if you agree with someone 100% of the time, someone in that relationship's lying.
Yes. Without a doubt. So.
But, hey, if we can get this thing going and we can get something that a media outlet can market, like a playoff system or a play-in games that's not politics and not numbers-driven, I believe we can get a little headway.
For sure. So, all right. Well, that was it, ladies and gents. That was your other helping of Danny Webster.
Sorry.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So here is that opinion now that you have some context, because it's my podcast. I can have the last word. Anyway, Danny hit the nail on the head, I think, when he said we can have moderate amounts of change or slow change. I think that's the goal. And then a conversation that Tom and Aaron and I had beforehand, and the one bit that I really enjoyed saying was we got very passionate about it, and we're all friends, and it all came from a good place. And what Tom said is this is what needs to keep happening, is people need to keep discussing it. So I will always be more than happy to use this platform to try and have people discuss it, because it's the only way we're going to have any of those changes as a sport. And I hope you guys enjoyed listening to it, because I thoroughly enjoyed sitting down and doing this. And Danny's a great guy to have on the podcast because he's just incredibly knowledgeable. So thanks again for tuning in, guys.
All right, guys, that wraps up another episode of the Going Rogue podcast. We got a couple more sponsors we're going to mention. If you like what we're doing and want to support us, the best way to do that is by supporting them. So please keep listening for just another minute or two. And thank you guys for being here. First up, the Barn Gym. If you guys are anywhere near Caroline County, Virginia, or Ruth or Glenn, or feel like making a drive and find yourself somewhere near the 95 Route 1 corridor in the northern part of Central Virginia, stop on by and check out the Barn Gym. It is the only 24-hour strength facility in that area. It has everything you need, from Highland Games to strongman to powerlifting to grip sports or just general fitness. You can find them at thebarngymva.com, on Instagram at thebarngymva, a period between every word, or you can email them at ltgthebarngym@gmail.com. That's L as in Lincoln, T as in Tom, G as in George, thebarngym@gmail.com. Check them out. We'd like to take a moment to talk about our other sponsor, ChemStud. ChemStud is an app to help you with chemistry. Written by a high school chemistry teacher who was tired of explaining everything over and over, ChemStud is capable of solving basically any and all general chemistry problem. ChemStud is capable of showing its work using significant figures and is receiving new updates all the time. ChemStud is available on iOS and Android for $4.99 in the App Store. Stop struggling with chemistry and become a ChemStud today. The one and only Badger Highland Games supply. If you are looking for any and all equipment related to the Highland Games, reach out to Greg Martz. He runs Badger Highland Games Supply. You can find him on Instagram or Facebook by searching Badger Highland Games Supply. He's got a full price list, hammers, weights, sheaf forks, sheaf bags, anything and everything you could need. He's your man.